So, we are brought today, hello, we're brought today with my friend Steven
What's
Delos.
up, guys?
So, um, just some background on my relationship with Steve. One, Steve and I have been friends for many, many years. We met each other in college. We've been hanging out forever, it seems like. You know, but Steve is very accomplished in his field. He is a nurse. He very hard worker. He's current. I'm sure he'll tell you all about his schooling and everything right now. So pass it over to Steve. What's up?
Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you, John, for having me with you here on your podcast. My name is Steve Del Rios. Met John in college, like he had said. I've been working as a nurse for 6 years. I work at New York Presbyterian at the Wild Cornell campus. I work on a pediatric step-down unit, so I see from, 2-day-old babies to like 23-year-old like adults pretty much. Um, Schooling, I went to William Patterson with John. I got my BSN there, my Bachelor's of Science in Nursing. Currently, I'm getting my doctorate in nursing practice from Rutgers, specializing in pediatrics, the pediatric nurse practitioner track. Um, yeah, that's kind of like my background in the healthcare field. Just finishing up school, got like another year and a half left, and then see where that takes me.
All right, man. Sounds awesome, man. Yeah. So, all right. Thank you very much for giving us that little spiel. But what I want to do, let's do a little background. But what I
Mhm.
really like to go over is basically how it's like being a nurse, how'd you got into the field and everything. But let's learn about your background. Where are you from originally?
So my family's originally from Colombia.
Oh,
Mom and dad they were born there. My grandpa came over, brought over my dad. My dad and my mom had like knew each other from back in the farm days. So they got married. My mom came over here. My dad came over here in like I think he was like 12, 13 around there. My mom came here when she married my dad. I'm from Union Township. And right now I actually got a COVID home. Me and my wife purchased a home in the middle of COVID, so we're in Springfield. We got a home in like, well, we saw a home that was on the market in like March. We didn't think we were gonna buy a house. And 3 days later, they accepted our offer. So we had no idea it was kind of like we decided we were canceling the wedding and everything to buy this home. This was like peak fear, like everybody obsessed with Tiger King. There's no toilet paper. People were making hand sanitizer out of tequila. Like nobody was buying a house at this point. So we were the only people on the market, and they were actually very, very strict with who they were giving out loans to. Yeah, like they had to check with my HR. My boss had to sign a contract, and same thing with Sam, saying that I was not going to get fired due to COVID for at least 12 months.
geez.
Yeah, it was wild. So at least I knew I wasn't getting fired.
Yeah. Right. Hey, congratulations on the house.
Thank you, dude. It's been great. I love it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, you talk about your parents came over here from Colombia. What did your father do for a living?
So my dad and my mom both don't work actually at the moment. They're both disabled. So my mom doesn't make full disability, but she helps take care of my grandma who has Parkinson's and my dad who has epilepsy and muscular dyskinesia. My grandpa and my mom and my dad, they all live together in the same house. So I grew up with all of them. So that way if I misbehaved, I didn't get one beating, I got four.
Sounds fun.
But my dad, he first worked with my grandpa, and that's pretty much what him, and my mom and my grandma did. My grandpa owns a tailoring shop actually like down the street from my house, which is great because my grandpa is like one of my favorite people in the world. So I'll just go down and hang out with him for 15 minutes and come back home even on a busy day. Um, but my mom afterwards, she's just like tired of working with them. Like it's not like she just didn't like that, so she wanted to do her own thing. She became a home health aide. So that's what her job was up until she started staying home. She started getting like worsening joint pain, and she stayed home to help, like, with the house, with my grandpa, my mom, my dad.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Your parents, you said your parents being on disability and things like that. Did that have any influence on why you chose to become a nurse?
You know what? I don't know. Maybe subconsciously, maybe that's what it was. The main thing, so of course I wanted to help people. I don't know if that's why I wanted to help people. I don't know if it was because of what my parents instilled on me or because of what I saw growing up. But what I do know is in high school, what actually piqued my interest was my aunt, my dad's sister. She's an ED nurse for adults. When I was a kid, she used to tell me stories about the ED, but once I got older in high school, like they became like more gruesome. More, she started telling me like the real stuff. And then that's when I was just like, oh man, like nursing isn't just like, cleaning up bedpans and like giving somebody pills and taking a temperature. Like there's a lot more to the scope of practice of nursing. And like this is legit. Because I feel like everybody thinks of it as like, primarily women's profession, like soft, kind-hearted, which you have to be kind-hearted for, but you also have to be like, you have to have a stomach and you have to have like a toughness. So when I heard what my aunt's stories were, I was like, this seems like pretty cool. So then that's when I was like, I think I'm gonna be a nurse.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. How old were you when you figured that out?
Pretty early on in high school, but I wasn't sold, and not that I wasn't sold on it. I had other options, just like I'm more like, 14-year-olds, they don't entirely know what they want to do sometimes. So I was like, nursing sounds cool. I've been martial arts my whole life. So opening up my own martial arts studio was in the mix in there, and being an electrician was another one. I was pretty good at like reading. Like honestly, I haven't read one in a while, but I forgot even what they were called. But like the electrician schematics. Like I used to be in like an electrician class in high school. It was like a simple one, but like it was funny because the tests I would bomb, but he would give me like a packet to like build like a robot or something, and I was just like, I got this, and I would like be able to do it.
Gotcha. It's like practical work you were fine. Just
Yeah, yeah, but then I was just like, if you wanted me to take the exam, I bombed every single exam on that one.
I think we've all had that one class which is similar to that, you know.
Yeah.
But oh, that's very interesting, man. I appreciate you
Mhm.
sharing that. So when you got into nursing, well, let's talk about college first of all. Uh,
College, yeah.
so when you were in high school, thinking about going to college, you knew you wanted to, coming out of high school. Did you decide you wanted to become a nurse at that point?
Coming out of high school, yeah, yeah, I applied into the nursing programs, pretty much sold at nursing by like 16.
Okay,
So I was just like all in.
interesting, interesting. So why did you choose William Madison?
I wanted to stay local, particularly because like I said, like about my family, like I don't want to leave my dad high and dry in case my mom needs help, anything like that. And it's not like he particularly needs a super amount of help, but it was just I didn't want to leave knowing that if something happened, I wasn't there to help. Um, and I applied around New Jersey. It was actually like Seton Hall and FDU I applied to. I got accepted to, but way too expensive private schools. William Patterson and Rutgers, I actually made it to the top 10 of this Rutgers EOF program where they like pay for your entirety of school. It was out of Rutgers, Newark, and I think they only accept I forgot how many it was, but the lady basically told me she would accept me, but I needed to promise her on the spot I was gonna do it. The issue was that she said I would not have a free summer or like winter break ever. Like it was 4 years of nonstop work. And in that like 1 minute I had to make my decision, I was just like, I didn't quite understand how one school could have me have summers off and winter classes off and graduate in 4 years, but the other one couldn't. And it was just like, do I want to, you know, do this for 4 years and have no money? I have no bills or have some bills because I knew I at this point I knew I was getting financial aid and how much I was getting. So I was like, I think I'm fine with where I'm gonna be at for the other William Patterson program, 4 years and be able to like have free time to do stuff. She was even saying people failed out of their summers. And I
Oh
was
my,
like, this, yeah, yeah. And I was like, this is insane. Like, I don't really understand um, why. Like, I didn't get it. Still to this day, I don't get why. Like, I could see that they're giving you more classes, but I don't. If you're taking that many courses, like, it impacts your recollection and your adherence of of stuff. So I was just like, I'm good, man. So then they deferred me and I went to OEP.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So how was your experience there? Education, things like that. So I'm asking this also from the perspective of somebody who might be interested in going into nursing.
Yeah. Like I feel like nursing school experiences now that I'm in the field and I could talk to people who have gone to like dozens of different schools, it's so similar across the board. We even talk about like the same like the one topic we would talk about that we thought didn't make sense. And we're like, wait, you had to do that too? And they're like, yeah, we had to do that too. And everybody had to do it. If I had to describe it like quickly, I would say it's a grind. Um, you've never studied enough for an exam. Even now in grad school, like it's you never studied enough for an exam, and you'll never feel like you studied enough for an exam because there's so much moving around. Pieces to know about like any given topic in like science, the medical field, stuff like that, that no matter how much you studied, you feel like you haven't you haven't fully prepared.
All right, all right, all right. So what advice would you give?
It feels like a grind, so the best advice is to grind. Every day is another day to take a tiny step forward. So at minimum, I tell students study at minimum 2 hours a day. Um, Weekends included, because even if it's just refreshing, which I already know for 2 hours, at least you're helping with that adherence of information. So every day you have no exam for 3 weeks, it doesn't matter. Like I had an exam yesterday for pharmacology. Um, I was studying the day after my first lecture because my lectures are from 1 to 4:30 and then another lecture from 5 to 8. So I don't have time to study that day. That very next day, I was studying for this exam. Why? Because it just helps with adherence. Because now, rather than studying 2 days before the exam, where it's just all like cramming and just seeing what sticks, I last yesterday, right before the exam, like the hour before, all I did was quickly review my flashcards. There's like a stack. Let's see if I can pull them out. Oh man, I don't got them here. It's a stack, huge. Oh, here it is. It's like these are some of my flashcards, and I just went over them really quickly, and like they were all just stuck in my brain from just studying, a couple hours. I mean, I was studying like 6 hours a day though on my days off.
You're talking about for grad school right now for the
Grad school right now, yeah, yeah, grad school right now. That's what I've been doing. But the same concept applies to undergrad. You just have more free time because typically you're not working, a 9 to 5 or something like that. But for undergrad, I definitely recommend 2 hours a day of studying at least. Whether you have an exam or you don't, or 2 hours of schoolwork. If you need to write a paper, that's fine. But you need to do 2 hours of work every day.
good nerd. Yes, definitely. Interesting, interesting. Yeah, I remember how stressful it was
Uh,
to be like all hanging out. We're like, hey, you guys, we're about to go to. We just try to go to half apps. When you want to go, you're like, no, man, I gotta study. I'm like,
yep. Yep, still the same thing. And it's funny because it'll be your own family now. Like I'm going down the shore for family vacation. We all have a house, and everybody's like, "You sure you have to study?" I was like, "I got an exam on that Wednesday. Like, there's no." So I told them all, I'm like up and out, and every morning, like, it's 5:13 right now. I wake up at like 5 a.m. every day. Between 4:30 and 5:30 with no alarm, I'm just up. So I'm just up and out into like a Starbucks or like a library. Just gonna be studying down there.
definitely, definitely. I try to talk about when I'm teaching, especially to my students. I talk about the importance of being intentional.
Yeah.
So like,
Yes.
thing is, I mean, it's obvious for me. I hope you can talk on it a little bit more, but I speak about the importance of no matter what profession you go into or anything or whatever you choose to do with your life, it's very important to have a goal in mind,
Hmm.
stick towards that. So can you talk about how you've been intentional, how you've used that in your life, nursing, and why you chose to work so hard?
Yeah, that's actually going on your intentional thing. I'm just going to touch on something real quick because me and I used to do I still do martial arts. I used to be a martial arts instructor before nursing. We used to teach our students somewhat to the to speak on the intentional, we used to say practice does not make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. So you have to intentionally practice what you want to get better. You can't just do the movements, you have to do it with intent. So that's just what I want to say real quick. So your question was, what was it again on how was I
Yeah,
intentional in
about
success with nursing?
exactly, exactly. Like intentionally you're studying, and what was your motivation towards that?
Yeah, so my motivation was, well, I knew I wanted to be a nurse, but I had no plan B. Like my plan B was joining the military. So there was no like, I could do this or I could do that. And the big thing was though I had no plan B. So if I like messed up and I had to switch majors, like there was nothing there. So and I had nobody to help me pay for college. Like I had financial aid, but there was still like a good chunk of change. Like I had like $30,000 at the end of graduating of debt, where if just 2 years into my program, if I failed out, then that's me stuck with $15,000, no career. So that was it. Like it was just remembering like I had to do this, and it was like I had to do it for me, I had to do it for my family. Like there was just like a lot, and I was like, and it's all on me. Like there's nobody that could help me, and I'm very real with myself. So let's say I didn't get a grade I wanted on my exam. Like a lot of people would get like upset, cry, be like, screw this, they wouldn't study. And I had a rule where I only gave myself 2 hours to be upset. And then I thought about what I had to do to go forward. And that's with whatever in life. But in school, particularly, it'd be like I got my 2 hours to let out my anger, whether I need to go to the gym, whether I need to just lay down and just like stare at the ceiling. But 2 hours later, I was studying for the next exam because moping around wouldn't benefit me and help me move forward. I needed, to now I saw the problem and now I had to be intentional in how to progress and dig myself out of this hole that I did something wrong with. So it was just studying right after then. And
Excellent.
that was that mentality.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. Man. I hear you with that. Giving yourself time, giving yourself space to be upset. Because some
Mm-hmm.
people just try to get over something instead of
Mm-hmm.
trying to heal from something because it hurts failing a test.
It does.
And you're better than me, I guess. You give yourself 2 hours. I give myself a whole day.
Yeah, yeah.
I work, especially when you study hard. It's like, listen, I worked really hard to pass this exam. I studied wrong. I didn't get all the material or go into as much detail as I thought, and I didn't. Or it's just the test was way harder than I thought it was going to be. So it's just like I remember I would. Oh my gosh, was it Jimmy G's?
Jimmy G's and underdogs.
I go get some wings, or I get the. I can't think of that thing they had. Remember that burger they had in college? I can't think of it. I ordered it to the dorm.
You'd go to the W.
The W. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I got Connor and I got kicked out of there one time. But it was amazing. It was called the ambulance, and it was just had like bacon and mozzarella sticks, and it's like a burger. And I was like, listen, I feel bad. I just want this burger. I worked out today, that's what I give myself that, and me and my roommate we all play video games. That's how to get over it. I give myself 24 hours to feel back on myself, and then after that, it's like, all right, it's time to move on from here. I expressed I went through that, or I acknowledge that feeling, but you got to move on from that. That's the thing. Sometimes
Yep,
people get down and just stay in that negative feeling.
absolutely. My rule is when I tell other people, I say the longest you could like you mope around, the longest you give yourself to like feel bad for yourself, that one day, like the day that it happens, the day you have that bad exam, give yourself that day. But the next day, you need to start creating that new mentality of how do we get better? Because then, like you said, people start sitting around, and then that's how you go from, one mistake to failing out of nursing school.
100%. Very good. That's a very good point. So, going through nursing school, you hustling for the whole 4 years and all that good stuff, and you finally graduate. Can you tell us about the nursing exam?
The nursing exam, yeah, yeah, the nursing exam is pretty cool. I don't know if they switch it around a little bit. I don't think that they did. It's like it's a smart exam in the sense that there's a line, right? So picture a graph with a line down the middle. I don't know if your viewers will be able to see this on video or if it's just auditory. So there's a line down the middle, right? It's a flat line, and that is the difficulty, the level of the difficulty of a passing question. So that's where your first question starts. If you get it right, the difficulty goes above the line. Every question you get right in a row gets a little bit more and more difficult. If you get it wrong, it drops a little bit. So if you get your first question wrong, it gets easier, but that's below the passing level. It's 75 to 235 questions or 215. That's above 200. It stops whenever it deems that you are so high above the curve, above that line, that you will pass or so below it. So typically, if you're in your 75 questions and you keep on doing this, up, down, but going up that curve, at 75, it'll shut down. Same thing with vice versa. If at 75, you're doing this or this or this, it's going to keep going. Um, so that's where it messes with your head because um like for me, I pass at 75 questions. I could talk about if you'd like the strategy me and my friends did. There was four of us, three of us passed in 75, one passed in 105. So we all passed fairly like quickly. Like my test was like 45 minutes because I'm a fast test taker. Um, but it messes with your head because at the end, like at my 75 questions before, probably from 50 to 75, I was like pretty panicked because I was looking at these questions and they were the hardest questions I've ever had to see in an exam in my life. I'm like, what's going on? And I'm just knowing that I'm getting them wrong or thinking that I am. And then me and all my friends thought the same thing. And then when we all pass, we realize that's because you have to be significantly above that line with really difficult questions to pass at 75. So we were at really hard questions, which looks like it could be a bad sign while you're taking it, but in hindsight, it was a great sign for me doing well.
And you say you passed at 75. I have some friends who passed around like 150. Once you're like, yeah, I got like 200. I was like,
Yeah,
that's dude. That's awesome.
yeah. Passing is passing. It's just hard because you need that endurance for the 200 plus. And most of the people who I know uh who went above 200, they were people who didn't take the time to study. They
Yeah.
took less time. They graduated, got their diploma, and they took like 3 weeks, 4 weeks to study. We took 2 months,
Mm.
and I did thousands and thousands of questions every single day. I use this thing called Kaplan, and it gives you a course. It's like a week-long course, but they give you like a 1,600 question bank or something like that. And what I did is I answered every question from top to bottom. Took me a while, a very long time. And once I did the bank, every question that I got wrong from top to bottom again until I got every single question right. Because it's not about the content, it's about how to understand how to answer the question. So it's not the content. It's not as simple as, you know, um, you have a patient who has a 39-degree temperature. Is that a fever? Like that's very concrete. It's more so just eliminating what you don't know and answering what's most right.
Mhm.
And then after that, I NCSBN makes the exam, so I bought like 1,000 question bank from them and did the same thing. Like answered them all and just kept on doing the ones that were right, that I got wrong until they were right. And that was like that 2 month studying period, 6 week to 2 month studying period. Me and all my friends did that. Three of us passed at 75, one passed at like 110.
And one time's not bad at all.
No, no, it's better than like,
200.
230. Yeah, you're there for hours, like 4 or 5 hours.
Yes, yes. I can't imagine being there. Like, I remember when you found out too, because like guys, if I wanted to see my friend Steve, I had to go to his place. Like, because he was just studying all the time. And I remember, because you finished after we graduated, right? I
Finish
believe the
finish the ex
the exam, because I think we graduated, and then you saw your results, and then we were all like breath of fresh air. You were like, John, I passed with the 75. I was like, oh man. He's like, no, that's good. I was like, all right. But I remember because you were like, I remember we went out that night. You were like, bro, it's 45 minutes. I was freaking out. They didn't even tell you till like the next day, right?
No, they don't tell you for 3 days. They don't tell you for 3 days. Yep. So you're sitting there just like they say that there's like a cheat code on how to find out if you got it right before then. But like me personally, like I nobody knows if it's right or wrong. So it's just like why am I going to do this cheat? All the new nursing students that I work with at work, when they're like, does a cheat code work? Should I do it? I'm like, I mean, like, what does it do for you though? Like, if it tells you that you failed this cheat code and it's wrong, it just stressed you out even more. Or if it tells you that you passed, are you really going to believe it? Or is it just going to be like something that makes you feel a little bit better? Like, either way, it's not giving you any concrete answers. So I was just somebody that didn't believe in doing the cheat code thing to figure out if I passed beforehand.
Interesting. I didn't even hear about that. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like if you try and call and re-register for the exam and it gives you the option to, it's because you failed. Something like that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
People are so clever. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so clever. Oh man. So I was so curious. When you were in college, were there any of your college students, nursing teachers who really inspired you?
Yeah. So it's crazy because it wasn't a nursing teacher. He was a intro to psych professor. It wasn't that he inspired me, but it was that his methods really spoke with me. Because I am, very heavy on, I hate how teaching is taught in college. Lectures are god awful. I shouldn't be listening to somebody reading every single word off of a PowerPoint slide that's black and white for 3.5 hours. That's just a waste of my time. I could be studying better on my own, just to be blunt about it. So this guy, he was a nutcase, and I loved it. I don't remember his name, but I know exactly what he looks like. And if you saw him walking around campus, you would think that there's this guy's nuts, and he was. The but he was great. And the one lecture that stuck with me, because I didn't really care about the other stuff he was talking about. And he wasn't a psych nursing professor. It was intro to psychology. So it was like a gen ed course. Um, he like smacks his book against like the chalkboard, like in the middle of the lecture, and he like starts cursing. He's like, "This is gonna be. I'm making this blah 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 blah," blah, just yelling. And he's like, "See what I did there?" And we're like, "What?" We're all like confused. And he goes, "He was teaching about the brain, the part of the brain that recollects stuff." And he goes, "You will always remember this lecture. Why? Because you've never had a lecture where Professor done this has done this." Sorry, I got a frog in my throat. And I was like, "You got my attention, man. Keep talking." He goes, "This is how you make it." And he like slams the table and goes, "Effing distinctive." And I'm like, okay. He's like, "This is that part of the brain. So now you're using this part of the brain. You're never going to forget this lecture because you've never had a teacher use the F bomb in front of you, slap a table, and hit the chalkboard." So I'm like, he goes, "If you ever want to teach, if you ever want people to learn, this is how they learn, by making things distinctive. Things have to be different. You can't sit here and mumble the same monotone voice for hours and hours with the same black and white slides for hours and hours and expect students to like adhere and recollect these things for the exam. Like, that's not how people learn." And I was like, "You're preaching to the choir, man. Like, he's telling me everything that I hate about school." And it's how like people just, yeah, it's like I hate those PowerPoint slide classes. Like, I could just be here. I could do this on my own, and I could do it my way for 3 hours, and I could, retain this information much better than, you with your nasally voice just going, "All right, so we're gonna continue with the next No, I can't do that. I can't do that." And most students can't. So he stuck out with me, and that's where I realized, like, there's a lot of professors, or not a lot, there's some professors in college who get it and they're trying to fix it. And he was one of them because there was like 100 people in his class. It wasn't like a tiny class. Um, he had a lot of people, and a lot of people, like, we were all smiling. You could see the eyes were open. Everybody's like, "This guy gets it."
Yeah.
Don't remember his name.
And it's interesting because, I was talking to some of my colleagues and especially the older teachers.
Hmm.
We were saying, there has to be in effective teaching, there has to be some form of entertainment. There's got to be
Yeah.
entertainment value because sometimes people, it's like, what's more important, you teaching or them understanding?
Yes.
And I think sometimes people will get so caught up in their ability to teach that your ability to teach is based off of how well your students are retaining the information.
Hmm. And people forget that they're teaching a topic that they're an expert in. Like you're teaching like level one out of 100, and you're like level 100 and really good at that level 100. Like you need to simplify it and stop, talking in difficult terms, stop, teaching over something that you think is simple to understand that may not be simple for other people. I'd rather teach, 10% of the curriculum and know that everybody's going to retain this information than 100% and know that nobody's going to remember anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, definitely. So going back into college.
Hmm.
So you finish, you get your 75 points, you graduate, you go out, you have the greatest day of your life. No, we go, we have a good time, but after all of that is finished, what was your first job out of college?
So my first job, right now I work at Cornell, like I had said, in the pediatric step down unit. My first job was in a general pediatric unit. It's right next door. Um, so the way it goes is, a general like med surg unit, step down unit, slightly more sick patients, ICU, more sick patients. So I'm right in the middle. Right now, I was working on the first one.
Okay.
My current unit actually wasn't open because we're all on one floor. So it's that way, it's easy. We could just transfer to each other. The unit that I'm in now is actually an adult neuro step down unit. And then they did the construction, and that's when I moved over. But that was my first job, a Gen Peds unit. But it was a fun fact. I was waiting on a pediatric ICU job at Columbia, our sister campus, because the main campuses for New York Presbyterian are Cornell and Columbia. So I'm waiting, but they're under construction. Like they were building this big new center. And the lady told me, she's like, you got the job. I just can't officially offer it to you because we don't know when this new building will be open and I'll have the positions. So I was like, all right, cool. I think that was like May, April when this was happening. And like she's following up every month. And then like September comes by. I'm like, man, like it's taking a while. So, or maybe it was August. So I started applying to other places locally. Like I was like applied to like a burn unit at St. Barnabas, like the peds ICU at Newark Beth. So then I get a call from the talent acquisition team at New York Presbyterian. They're like, hey, we work with this agency program with nurses who are in our system that are highly recommended to get the job but are waiting a position because the position isn't open. Are you interested? I was like, yeah, sure. So then I get their information. And then that's why I ended up working for this agency that helps new grads get into like these hospitals because rather than waiting for the position, like they the hospital pays them to place nurses in certain units that don't necessarily have the hiring capacity but need it. Like they haven't been approved by finance because the way it works is like finance looks at your previous year. So that's when they told me about this general pediatric unit at Cornell instead of the pediatric ICU at Columbia. And I was like, yeah, yeah, I'll do that. Man, but it was rough because this agency, they stopped doing it after me. There was two nurses before me who I'm friends with that did it on this unit. But they start off pay at $18 an hour, dude. And I'm commuting into the city and I had no health insurance, no benefits, 3 sick days, no other PTO days for an entire like 13 months. Yeah, because they start you at 18 and then like later on you go to 22 and you jump up to 28. But when you're at like 18, it's just like I couldn't afford health insurance and commuting into the city. Like, and I was living with my parents, so like that's why I did it. And I was
Very
like,
good.
oh yeah,
Can you talk about the hours you had to work too? Make
oh
it
yeah, yeah. So I work I'm on site for 13 and a half hours. So I clock in at 7:15 and I'm out at 8 o'clock
at night.
uh at night. Yeah. And when I was taking the train, my commute was like, I was getting back home at like 10:30. I was waking up at like 4:30 to go into work. And I do that 3 times a week. And once a month I have to do a fourth shift.
Wow, wow. And
Yes.
3 sick days for a year.
Yeah, I did this for a year while getting minimal pay. Because then afterwards, my boss, because my hospital boss is my current boss. Like she's the one who ran the whole place. She was like, "Yeah, I'm hiring you," and she's like, "I'm not gonna do this anymore." She's like, "I feel bad because when I found out you didn't have health insurance, but our patients did, like it kind of like sits with you differently. I was like, yeah, I mean, like, could I could barely afford health insurance. Like I wasn't able to stay on it. And what's crazy is because my dad was disabled, he got on Medicare, Medicaid. So I was kicked off my family's insurance at the age of 18, where most of our friends, they're on their parents' health insurance until they're 26.
Yeah.
So I was 23. I had no health insurance, or I was 24, I think, at the end of it. And I'd had health insurance since I was like 21, 22. Yeah, that sucked. I remember I actually got an infection in my toe in the middle of it. It hurt so bad, man. I had to go to my aunt, who's the ED nurse. I had to go to her house. And it was like kind of, it was small. It was just like on the corner of like where my nail was, but it hurt so bad. She had to cut it with scissors. I had to bite down on a pillow or like on a towel. She gave me a towel. I bit down on the towel, and she had to cut it off and wrap it up because I couldn't go to the ER to get it drained.
Like a Civil War nurse.
Oh, it was like 2019 or something. No, not 2019. It was like 2016.
I was gonna say that's gotta be a couple of years ago.
Yeah, yeah, but it was all good, you know. Luckily, I was living at home. My parents were still able to, like, support me with groceries and stuff like that. My grandpa, he was the owner of the house. He still bought groceries, all of that stuff. Um,
And I do find it very interesting the fact that you lived at home. Do you mind discussing why you chose to live at home out of school?
yeah, so I was living at an off-campus apartment during the end of school. I stayed there though up until I passed the NCLEX because we were doing month-to-month lease. We had that opportunity, and I had somebody ready to pick up my lease. I chose that because I was studying for all school at William Patterson, so it made sense to just stay and not switch up and like have to figure out a new library that I liked. So I just stayed there until I passed my boards. Passed my boards the next month. I moved back home, and I moved back home just to save money. Like nobody's gonna support you typically like your parents are in most situations. So I moved back home because nursing's tough, man. In that first year, um you have your days, you have your shifts where you're just like, I don't even, like, what happened? And you know living with your boys who are 22 years old, the last thing you want to come home to something like that is like there not be a clean spoon and you're trying to eat some cereal, or there just not be any milk and nobody refilled it.
Yeah,
I know with some households are different, but mostly, you know
that's right.
my household, there's always going to be milk, and if there's not, it's because my mom's at the grocery store right there, right then, or there's not a pile of dishes this high in the sink. And it's just like those tiny things that you don't consider support necessarily. They're like passive support, like knowing that I'm coming home and I'm gonna have body wash it to take a shower after working a dirty hospital. Like those things are little tiny things that could support you. Just like little things that if you didn't have them would create like unnecessary stress. And the finance portion, like, saving that money is great. Like I saved money. I sold my car because I was living in the city and my mom doesn't really drive much. So I was just borrowing her car. And my mom was borrowing my grandma's car, who stopped driving. So it worked out. And the way student loans work is you have multiple student loans, um, and each one has a different percentage interest you have to pay. So when I sold my car and I was making some money, because right afterwards I didn't get a job right away. I was working at the martial arts school. I was making under the table money, but I was making good money, like $20 an hour. Um, so all of my money was going to paying off the individual loans of highest interest. So you have to make one minimum payment. It's about like $100 a month. You can divvy it up the way you want. So I could say each individual loan has a minimum you have to pay. So if you have 10 loans, let's say $100 a month, you have to give $10 towards every one. So I would give $10 minimum to all of them. And then the one that was highest, because I had loans at like 11+%, I threw all of my money in there. Like it was just like if I could pay $700 that month, I was paying seven. If I could pay 1,000, I'm paying 1,000. So whatever I was doing, I was throwing it all in that loan until that one was gone. Then the next highest loan, boom, until that one was gone. Same thing, same thing, same thing until I was left with like three loans that are at 2%.
Excellent. And that's so that's one of the biggest reasons why you stay home too. And I think that's a very important thing to understand, especially going into college, the financial aspect of it. Because not only should you, a lot of people should be, again, intentional about what you're choosing, because sometimes people go into a major because they like the major, but it doesn't really serve much of a purpose in the business world or,
Hmm.
education or anything like that. And that's fine. Like there's some people who go into certain majors and they make up their own job, make up a small business. I think that's
Hmm.
excellent. But some people will go into a career or go into a major and have no idea like what they're going to do afterwards.
Yep. Yep.
But
It's like a cost benefit analysis. How much is it going to cost me and how do I benefit? It's simple in my head as much as like, if you're going to be $200,000 in debt going to college A for major A, but then, starting salary is $30,000 a year. And unless you open up your own business, and if that's not your plan to open up your business, top end salary is like $60,000 a year, you know, that's 400% of what your annual salary is. That's going to take you 20 years to pay off, and it's a 10-year student loan. So how are we going to figure that out?
exactly, exactly right. So really quickly, let me just go ahead. So not we, but I know this. My father was very sick when I was growing up, so I was in and out of the hospital all the time. So I have a great respect for nurses and stuff, but I understand that not every day is easy. I know you're saying some days are harder than others. The last thing you want to do is come home to a dirty spoon. But I speak about here about the importance of emotional health, social health, mental health, things like that. What certain things that you do on those days that are harder than others? And do you have any examples of days that would be harder than others?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. There's some days that are harder than others. Are you asking me like what I would do on shift though, or are you asking me like what I did outside of my days off to kind of take care of myself?
Honestly, I'm at all your days off, but let me know what you did in shift too. That might be interesting. Like,
Yeah, sure. I mean, one that sticks out, I mean, we had a couple of them, we take care of children with cancer a decent amount too. So, these children with cancer, you get cool with them and their families. Um, and usually their families are like amazing. They're the nicest people ever because they're very grateful. They're just, every day that their child is alive, they're happy. But sometimes you get the kids that get like really bad cancer, like terminal, they're not going to make it. And you sometimes it's not everybody attaches to the families um as much as certain people. Like everybody gets along with them, but they really click with some people, and that's where they form that like friendship, like family relationship, where they come to you for things and they trust other people, but they come specifically to you. And every nurse has their family that they were cooler with than other people with. um so yeah, those kids end up passing away. We have to deal with that. Sometimes there was a year where we had like, three really, really good patients that all passed away like 3 months away from each other. And it was just like, he was like a year and a half. The other one, she was like, I think she was a couple months away from her third birthday. And the last one, he was 17, but he was one of my first patients. I've been taking care of him for 4 years.
wow,
So
like,
he was 17, but he'd been fighting cancer since he was like 14 or 13. Like he just kept on relapsing. So those were some of the toughest times alongside with COVID. We turned into a full-blown COVID adult ICU, like one day to the next. Um, yeah, those things get tough. When when they pass away, you just kind of try and think about like how they're at peace now. Um, think about that they're not suffering. That's kind of like how you get yourself through it. You also think about like all the good times. You don't think about the end. You think about like all the jokes that you guys had or how adorable the kid was, or like how good the supportive parent was. Like, oh, their parent was so awesome. Now everybody's able to rest.
definitely, definitely, definitely. So what do you do outside of gym? Like, do you meditate? Do you go and do? So I know you do. Your third degree in
Yeah.
Taekwondo.
Yeah, third degree in Taekwondo. I hung up my Taekwondo uniform a couple years ago and picked up some Muay Thai shorts, probably like 5 years ago. So Muay Thai is my thing. Um, Always have a special place in my heart for Taekwondo, but I love Muay Thai more than I've ever loved Taekwondo. It's amazing. But Taekwondo is very special to me still. Nothing wrong with Taekwondo. I do that on my days off. I do weightlifting. Um, those are my main stress relief. Uh, I have my own like studio in my garage. So if like friends over, we'll hit pads, we'll spar. Um, yeah, and we'll like lift weights, we'll go for hikes, stuff like that, like just forms of exercise, which isn't like a formal meditation, but I like to tell, like, my wife thinks I'm insane for saying this, but there's a peace in violence. And I'm not saying going out and like punching some random person in the face, right? Like, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about in like martial arts, whether it be Brazilian jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, anything. Whenever you're sparring, it's really one of the times you truly only times in life you're not thinking about anything else. Like if you're weightlifting, you could be thinking about that breakup. I'm so angry at this guy, this girl. You know, this stupid professor. They gave me a dumb test, and you're taking your anger out from something on this action. But when you're sparring, you're not thinking about anything else. That's one of the only times you're in that moment, like that, and like skydiving and like roller coaster rides. Like it's like that kind of feeling. Like when you're skydiving, you're not thinking about how angry you are at your ex-boyfriend. You're thinking about in the moment, and that's what is beautiful about sparring. You're only in the moment, and if you're not in the moment, well, you're gonna get chipped up.
Right?
So
Was it
at
Mike Tyson said everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, right?
Yep, yep, yep. But that's that peace and violence. That's that peace and violence.
I understand what you're saying too. I talked to, I mean, some people feel that through football. You said you get that through martial arts. Some people do get
Mm,
that through weightlifting. I know for myself, when I'm really aggressive, especially on leg day, if I'm doing leg day and I'm in a bad mood, I'm gonna have a great workout.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I definitely understand that, the peace and violence kind of thing, because it's a form of being mindful. You're totally
Yeah.
present. I know
Yeah.
when I was doing jujitsu, I need to get back to it. I miss it so much. But when I was doing jujitsu, I remember it was just so calming, and it was like everyone's trying to choke each other and trying to
Mm-hmm.
bars and different things like that. And then, but like at the end of the day, it's we're doing it for fun.
Yeah, it's all smiles.
All smiles, like boxing. When I was boxing, I had this one guy. He was Golden Globes, and he gave me the business, and he was just so kind. He was just like all
Yep,
smiles. And I definitely understand what you're saying. There's a positive way to get that negative energy out.
absolutely.
That's a martial arts and weightlifting and hiking is a very positive way to get that negative energy out.
Yep. And if you use that negative energy in a negative way in martial arts or fighting, it doesn't always work. It typically does, especially if you're not trained. If you're somebody who doesn't know what you're doing and you go in there trying to swing with bad intentions because you're angry, the guy who's calm, he's gonna chip you up. The guy who's calm and knows what he's doing, he's gonna chip you up. And that's what, like I said, that peace and violence, because you really got to be in the moment. Really got to forget about everything else and just be all in on that 3-minute round.
Mhm.
And that's it. You can't have anything around you. You're pissed off, leave it at the door.
Exactly, and that's again mindfulness, that mindset, that wellness. It teaches your brain how to handle stressful situations.
Yeah. Everybody at work tells me, they're like, how can you always be so happy? Because I'm always the guy who walks in and the first thing I say is, it's going to be a great day. And I'm like, it's all good. It's only 12 hours. Like these patients are here for like a week. It's 12 hours for me. And I was like, Steve, why are you always so happy, man? Like, what do you do? I was like, I mean, I get punched in the face a lot. And I think that might just be what it is, because me and all my friends are pretty like doofy happy guys. I don't know if it's because of the lack of brain cells from getting punched in the face so much, or if it's just for the,
It's most likely getting punched in the head. Yes, but yeah, you're saying it's a great form of mindfulness for yourself,
Yep.
like, and everyone has their niche. I was telling
Hmm.
some of my students, some people dance, some people, I have a friend, she does African dance. I have, some people might pottery, some people I meditate a
Mm.
lot. So that's part of my wellness things. But yeah, I mean, martial arts, I've been saying that forever, that martial arts is an excellent way to get that aggression out.
Yep.
And here's the thing too, that aggression is important. You need it. It's
Yeah.
you should avoid. It's something you should cultivate and learn to
Yeah,
manage.
it's a natural emotion. Everybody feels it. So you shouldn't try to like, I'm not gonna say suppress it, but you shouldn't try and act like it doesn't happen.
Exactly. And one of my things is, I think it was Maya Angelou who was talking about anger. And she says, because I'm not sure if you're familiar with Maya Angelou, but she, in the 60s and 70s, a lot of her friends were assassinated. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Robert Kennedy. And they were like, so what do you do? Like, I would be furious, I'd be angry. And she's like, oh, I'm angry. I'm very angry, but I'm not bitter. So what I do is she's like, you take that anger and you write that anger, you vote that anger, you speak that anger, you express that anger. And it's very important to do that in positive ways because if you just hold on to that anger when you lash out, you're hurting everyone.
Yeah, it's a weight that could pull you down.
Definitely, definitely. So, all righty. So let me see here because we got, yeah, man, as far as you, because this is actually my personal question.
Hmm.
So, how are you growing in your career and what are your goals? I've known your goals, but they keep going higher and higher. So,
Yeah, man. So how have I grown in my career? And just like in most careers, what you want to seek is kind of like confidence and not like cockiness, confidence. And it's not something you could rush. So I've grown because I'm a lot more confident. Like I'm one of the go-to guys on my unit now. When when things, aren't going okay, I'm one of the first people to run in. Like we had a patient like a week ago where their oxygen level like dropped astronomically low in like a matter of seconds. And like me and my two coworkers were the people who like ran inside and like fixed everything and they ended up being okay. So that's how I've grown, it went from being the shy guy that was asking, simple questions that now I know are appropriate questions, but at the time I was like, I don't even know how to like screw this thing onto like the IV port or whatever. And I was like, how do I do this? To being like one of the supporting blocks of our unit. Um, and where do I want to go with my career, you were saying? So right now, what I'm thinking is I'm really interested in like sports medicine. So I've been looking into trying to get into a pediatric sports medicine office when I graduate. It's just super niche, like it's a very fine specialty. So it's difficult to wait for that job position to open because you don't know when it is. And not all offices accept nurse practitioners, some accept PAs instead. So I'm trying to see how I could try and get in there. I still have 2 years before I graduate school. I'm going to try and get in one of their offices for clinical. But I'm hoping to be able to do that because I would love to do that. Something like I do like a like data analysis and literature reviews by myself for fun on topics of sports medicine. And sports medicine and pediatrics still encompasses high school and college sports. You have 21-year-olds who could still see a pediatric sports medicine doctor. Um, but I would love to continue my education. So if I got into a niche like that, I was looking at like what sports medicine medical doctors do that are highly respected, and they go back for their PhD in exercise science. So that's what I was looking at, seeing if I could go back get a master's in exercise science to a PhD in exercise science, but it all kind of sits back on whether I could get into one of these very specialized locations, which I'm hoping I can. Trying to be optimistic. Might take a little while, but I got the rest of my life.
I got you. And then you're going to run for Congress and then president.
President of the US of A.
Of course, of course. Man. Yeah, man. So, um, I got one more question for you.
Yeah, what's up?
Um, what would you recommend for high school students coming into the nursing program? What would you recommend for graduating nursing students going into the profession, especially in
So
the first 2 years?
So for graduating nursing students going into the profession, a lot of people are ambitious in nursing. Everybody's being pushed to go back to school. it's not for everyone. I like to tell people who are thinking about going back to school, do not go back for at least 2 years. There's people who do the direct jump right after their bachelor's. Here's why. School is something you pay for an education. You just you just got your nursing license. You just got your nursing job. And going back to school, it's a career change. A nurse practitioner isn't a promotion from an RN. It's two completely different positions, right? If you're going back to school for management, a nurse manager is different than an RN, two different positions. A nurse educator, if you're going back for education, different than an RN. So you kind of get, it's not a promotion, separate things. One's just higher than the other. So if why would you immediately go back and pay for more education when you can get paid to learn at work? There's so much to learn as an RN. So that first year, you really are building fundamental building blocks towards your confidence level, um, just like all your fundamentals of nursing. But most nurses make their mistakes in that first year period because they get too much hop in their step. We
Mhm.
all have, whether it be a bad mistake or, an easy, simple mistake, it happens to everybody. Or they catch a big mistake beforehand because they just, they roll up their sleeves a little bit and they're like, I got this. Everybody, including myself. Um, that's why I say wait until that second year because you think you got it, but you don't. So now if you're going to start school again, you're learning times two, and like how you were saying, somebody's learning too much, you're not going to remember stuff. So you're learning at work, you're learning at school. Where me, I didn't start school for like 2.5 years after. I'm using what I learned in school in work and applying it in school because it's very similar stuff. It's the stuff that I'm learning about the stuff that I have at work just a little bit more in depth. So now it's like my work is like a tutoring session for school because I've already learned it and I'm able to like live it every day at work. So that'd be one of my best advice that I could give anybody who graduated and just wants to immediately jump back into it. Take your 2 years because that's education you're getting paid to have. Um, Another thing is ask questions. That somebody, if you ever ask a nurse, that's what they'll tell you, though. I usually bypass that one and don't go into it because every nurse will tell you to ask questions. But the other thing is be the positive climate you want at work. So say hello to everybody, smile and wave. I'm that guy who everybody knows me now because anytime you pass by the unit, I'm saying, hey, what's up, and waving. So everybody, all the workers who just pass by, they always say that we're the most friendly unit. Not saying that I want to take all the credit, but I feel like I helped to build those fundamentals. And I was the one who was smiling, waving, so all my coworkers started doing it, and now everybody loves coming to work with us. Whether it be the environmental service people, like the people who buff our floors, the engineering people who fix our TVs when they're broken, the food people who deliver the food. Everybody always goes, we are the friendliest place that we work at because we always stop, say hello, ask them how their day was, stuff like that.
What is the thing? I know I said I was going to the last question, but you know me. I
No,
can't.
it's all good.
What is the number one thing you love about your job?
So I'm definitely gonna say the unpredictability. I could be soft and say that it's that I'm helping people, but I'm trying to give answers that not everybody gives, and not everybody's gonna assume. Like everybody knows nurses love their job because they like to help people. If you don't want to help people, you wouldn't be a nurse. So, um, it's unpredictability. That's what's really cool. Like how I told you about that one patient whose oxygen level was just dropped. We were sitting there, we are having a great shift. It wasn't that busy of a day. We're sitting down. I think we are all talking, cracking jokes. And then we hear the beeping. We look at the monitor and we're all like, oh crap. Ran inside, you know, we stabilized her. The pediatric ICU came because we called like a response team for it. Everything was settled. 15 minutes later, we're back in our chairs. And it was just like, because it was a simple fix. It wasn't that anything was like super, super bad. She was just she had no muscle tone and she slid down in bed and closed down
Oh,
her. So we just had to reposition her properly. Um, but yeah, it was just like, it went from being, chill day to boom, everybody like, ran inside, had great critical thinking skills, great teamwork, came back outside and chilling again. It was just,
so
that's what's so cool. I feel like not a lot of people have that in their job where it could go from like, cracking jokes to life-threatening situation to cracking jokes right afterwards.
And if it does have that kind of, if that happens at their job, it's not a good thing.
It's
If that happened at my job, or life situation, like, oh my gosh,
yeah, yeah. Most people couldn't go back to like doing what they were doing afterwards in their job. They'd probably be in an ambulance or wondering if like, I hope Johnny's okay.
right? Like I'm a gym teacher. If I have a kid who twists their ankle in my class, I feel horrible.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh no, you okay? I failed. Listen, man, Steve, I
Yep.
appreciate you, man. You're one of my
Oh,
best,
thank you.
my oldest friends, and appreciate you coming on the podcast, talking to my young geniuses here about, the profession, the nursing profession, talk about your personal life and things that you've had to overcome and how you got into this. So I
Thank you for having me, man. I thought this was real dope. Is this going on your channel, your YouTube channel?
this is gonna go on my channel.
If anybody's got questions, feel free to post them on the comments. If anything about like nursing school, um, and anything nursing related, post them in the comments. If I don't see them, I'll ask John to just, hit me up and tell me to answer. I'm subscribed to your channel though, so I'll be paying attention to see
Hey,
if anybody comments anything. But if you have any questions, please let me know. Um, yeah, thank you for having me, dude. It was great.
man, I appreciate you, man. Guys, I'll catch you guys later. Have a good day. See you.